mighty dwarf kingdoms, long thought diminished, are resurgent under their high king.
Hello and welcome to another Total War Warhammer guide. Today we are looking at the most fun, extreme end of the dwarf army even, and they are the Irondrakes, which are basically heavily armoured dwarfs with flame cannons. Miniature flame cannons if you've checked my video. Next up we have the Irondrakes with the Trollhammer Torpedo, which is a cannon shot with an explosion. Yeah, because why not? And finally we're going to have a look at the Ironbreakers. Probably my favourite infantry unit the dwarfs have. We're going to go through the stats, the differences between the three, and then obviously we're going to see them in battle, and then I'm just going to explain to you how you might go about using them in battle. So the Irondrakes, both units come in size of 18. They're a very small elite force. Obviously they've been trained to use basically a handheld flame cannon is the best way I can describe it. So they're heavily armoured, they are anti-infantry, obviously they do a lot of area effect damage with those flame cannons. They're not very good, the flame's not very good against armour. But like I said, unit of 18, 1,600 hit points, massive amount of armour, 120, really good leadership of 85, slow as all dwarfs, melee attack of 20, defense of 25, weapon strength 8. None of this really matters because that's not what you're really there for. The good thing is you don't really want to put them in close hand-to-hand combat, but if they do get in hand-to-hand combat, they will survive because of their massive armour. And also they won't really break because they got leadership. So if worst comes to the worst and you do commit them, that's fine. They have a range of 80, ammunition of 25, a range of 80, and their missile damage is 124. So if you look at the split, missile damage is 5, armor piercing is 1, explosive damage is 16, 3 of that is armor, or 3 is armor piercing, and they do 4 shots per volley. Kind of, it's not really, doesn't really work like that, but you'll see it in action shortly. And a reload time pretty decent of 8.1 seconds. So as with all dwarfs, magic resistance 25%. They can hide in the forest, but they also have one thing that all the other dwarfs don't, which is fire resistance of 70%. Obviously, they're using fire weapons. They need sort of flame retardant armor, I guess. So that's why they've got that. That's really helpful in certain situations. Next, we're going to look at the Trollhammer Torpedo, which is the variant on the Irondrakes. So the rest of the stats are pretty much the same, identical all the way down to ammunition. So they have slightly less ammunition of 5 less. They got a slightly higher range, but not much that makes a difference. They do 82 damage instead of 124, but you'll notice they're obviously heavily armor piercing. So 25 missile damage, armor piercing of 100, and they also do a little bit of area effect, but that's not the main reason you use them. It's really for that, big damage to the heavily armored troops. And they're good at going. They're called Trollhammer for a reason. They're good at going after armored large targets, anything horse or bigger. So these are great at taking down your Reiksguard knights, or your trolls, giants, all that sort of thing. Monstrous cavalry, perfect for that, to soften those guys up. They also have the same stats, fire resistance and everything like that. Excuse me, but the one big thing about them is they're much slower firing. They're almost twice, I think, as slow, 17.1 seconds. So that's almost like cannon speed of reload. So don't expect them to get that many shots during a battle. Now we go on to the Ironbreakers, and the reason why I include them in this sort of ranged infantry is although they're very fighty characters, they do have 2 shots, an ammunition of 2. Well, I'll show you the weapon, it's amazing. So they are armoured and shielded, meaning they're going to take less damage from missile weapons and units that don't do as much armour piercing damage. They've got a special range weapon, which we'll talk about shortly, and they've got a really good charge defense against anything that charges them. They're up for a fight. They want to fight. 6,000 hit points, a unit of 75, so good number of troops. 120 armor, ridiculous. 85 leadership. The rest of the stats are sort of similar to all dwarfs. Speed is 27, melee attack of 30, defense of 36, which is amazing. Weapon strength of 30, which is decent, not much of a charge bonus. 2-shot ammunition, which has a very short range, and it does a small amount of damage. Well, it's a small amount of initial damage, but it's got a large area effect, and we're going to show you that now, and we'll talk about how you use them in battle. So let's start this battle against some poor little Bretonians. I don't think they're going to charge us because they're just going to sit there. So we have to go and move to them. So while we're moving up, I'll talk to you about how we use them. So with the Ironbreakers being one of my favourite units, the way I like to use Ironbreakers is just off on a flank. If you can find a cheeky little forest to hide them in, all the better. You know, down a hill, behind a rock, whatever you can do to just keep them out of the fight a little bit. And then as the army passes you, their main force passes you to get into the fight, I spring the Ironbreaker trap and fire their short range. They're like sort of satchel charges, almost like grenades, but they look like satchel charges. And what they do, I'll send them in alone first so we can see them in action. They only have 2 shots, very short range. Like I said, you literally use this and then you're into combat. So let's have a look at it in action. So this is a pretty devastating attack, to be fair. Let's speed this up a bit. Come on, buddies. We'll go in from an angle because eventually when these guys start shooting, we'll take toggle fire at will off because we don't want to mess in about. So we're going to just tempt these little Bretonian, what are they, Bretonian men-at-arms, spearmen-at-arms, into charging. As you can see, ridiculously short range. So, because they're so short range, you're pretty much committed to the fight once you get close enough to use them. So here we go, we're just going to start moving forward. And throw out our little satchel charges, which you'll see very shortly. Here we go, they're picking them up. And chuck them. Chuck them. Yeah. It's almost cheating. It's a ridiculous amount of damage. Next up, we're going to unleash the Irondrakes. Just to say hello. We won't worry about friendly fire. So these are the sort of flame cannon guys. You have these just in front of your front line. So you've softened them up with your artillery. You've softened them up with the grudge throws and the cannons, and then maybe even the organ guns. And then just before your main infantry blocks engage, you then unleash the hell that is the flamethrowers. And obviously you send your Trollhammer torpedo guys against the heavily armoured troops. But we're just going to shoot into the side of these guys now with our cannons. Here we go, with our cannonballs. It's absolutely devastating what these guys do. Obviously, you have to be very careful of friendly fire because it's kind of burny. But it is these units. There we go. More. It feels unfair. It literally feels unfair. It's kind of cheating. But obviously, all seriousness, they're very slow. They don't have much ammunition, and they're tiny units. That's what sort of really makes up for them. So, like I said, obviously you'd have these short-range Irondrakes in front of your main line as your last big attack before you then send in your mass infantry ahead of them to get involved in a hand-to-hand combat. The way I'd use the Irondrakes, there's 2 ways. You can either, like I was explaining earlier, hide them off on a flank, wait for the combat to wait for them to move past you to the 2 big combat lines to meet, and then just come in from the side, throw in those big satchel charges, and then charge in, because they're very good in combat. That's the main thing. You still don't think of them as missile troops. That's just a little Brucey bonus. The main thing is they're very good in combat. But you can also use a number of... They're expensive, but you can use Ironbreakers as part of your front line. So you might have like a unit of Slayers or Hammerers, then a unit of Ironbreakers, then another unit of Infantry Warriors or something, and then another unit of Ironbreakers, just to have that extra line before they get you. Like, you know, Dwarfs basically work on a gun line. So if you think of a Dwarf gun line, which is lots of artillery, massive range with those cannons of 420, they start softening up the enemy, right? So the enemy managed to get through that, and they're thinking, right, come on lads, we're going to do this, we can kill those fucking stunties. Then you open up with things like the flame cannon, the organ gun, not quite as high range, but 275 range, still very, very good. And let's say they managed to battle through that, right? They've struggled through. Then your other infantry is going to open up, like what I'm talking about, the Thunderers and the Quarrelers. they're going to start doing some damage. And let's say that these enemies are tough nuts and they still manage to walk through that. Then, even before they get to combat, the next line opens up, which will be your Ironbreakers, the 2 variations of Ironbreakers, which are just going to shred through armour with the troll hammers, or just massive damage with the normal Irondrakes, and just ridiculous. And even, let's say they manage to scrape their way through that, they're still charging at you, they won't give up, right? Then, you've got a massive unit of Ironbreakers sitting there going, alright, satchel charge, in your face. Oh, my warriors are fleeing. That's because we're doing so much damage with our friendly fire. But then you've got units of Ironbreakers that can throw those 2 satchel charges. And let's say that the enemy miraculously manages to break all those through those different lines of gun lines. Then your warriors come in your Longbeards and your Slayers, and just tidy up, basically. The few that did survive, oh, that looks like it hurt. They just in to mop up at the end. It's beautiful sight. If it all works together like that, it's just absolutely beautiful. And there's not much that can withstand all that gunfire coming into a fight. That's why on the tabletop version, I fucking hated playing against dwarfs with my Orc and Goblin army or my Tomb King's army. It was just horrible. They're just horrible to play against, but obviously devastatingly powerful. There you go, guys. There's my little mini guide to the Irondrakes. I'm totally forgetting names now. It's like 3 in the morning. Irondrakes and the Ironbreakers. Hope you enjoyed it. Use them in battle. They are a fantastic unit. Thank you very much, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe for more Warhammer and other goodness. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.